there. And as we come to the end stages of this vote counting process, IEC officials continue to face some tough questions about some aspects of this year's polls. As you saw, more than 30 parties walking out of a meeting with the Independent Electoral Commission regarding the audit over voting irregularities. Well, someone who has an idea of what it's like to manage an elections process and field questions such as this is former IEC Vice Chairperson and now the Executive Chairperson of the Institute of Election Management Services in Africa, Tselane. Terry, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me here.
All right, 30 parties, press conference saying they're going to court, and some of them even threatening to bring people to the IEC. This isn't something you've seen before.
Well, the Commission has always been taken to court. You remember that during the Clockware debacle, we were taken to court as the Commission, to the Electoral Court until the Constitutional Court. So this is nothing irregular at all. There are instruments in law that enable the political parties who are disaffected by the decisions or the results of the elections to approach the court. You know that the starting point is what I've been saying, Section 55 objections. 65 objections basically relates to the results material to the outcome of the elections. So if a political party feels, or anybody feels that the irregularities are such that they will affect the outcome of the results of the elections, they can invoke Section 55 of the Electoral Act by approaching the Electoral Commission and lodging an objection. And if they are not happy with the decision of the Commission, and I know that at this stage the Commission has already indicated that they are dealing with those issues in terms of Section 55 of the Electoral Act. So once they make up their decision and they communicate that decision, it will be within the political party's right again to go to the next level, which is the Electoral Court. So the instruments are there. If you are not happy with the decision of the Commission, you approach the Electoral Court. If you are not happy with the decision of the Electoral Court, you still have the Constitutional Court that you can actually approach. So because the instruments are there in law,
they can be used.
Absolutely. There is nothing irregular about it.
All right. So what does that do for us in terms of timeline in declaring the announcements? I'd heard that 9 o'clock tonight was a cut-off time. What is that, and what does it mean in the context of what's happening now?
No, 9 o'clock is not a cut-off time. The Commission has got to make sure that firstly, the Commission cannot announce the results within 48 hours. Okay. So the cut-off time that you're referring to, it's actually the time frame within which the Commission cannot announce the results of an election. So now, after that, the Commission still has 7 days within which they can announce the results of an election. So we will see as to whether it is possible for them to do so. But again, the Commission cannot announce the results of an election until such time they've dealt with Section 48 objections. So if the issue of auditing certain results or certain processes within the electoral processes as objected to by political political parties, if those issues are not resolved tomorrow or any other day, they are going to have to continue dealing with those issues to the best of their abilities, and then once they finalize them, it is then that they can actually be able to say.
So what happens if this isn't resolved in 7 days?
Section 57, Section 56 of the Electoral Act empowers the Commission to approach the Electoral Court to extend the period within which they can announce the results.
All right. So, have you? In fact, let's talk about the issues themselves that are being raised. Apart from the voting twice, what sort of issues are normally brought before the IEC that you've experienced in the many years that you've had experience with this?
Well, the main issue that, the biggest issue actually was the issues around the voters' roll. Remember that, as I've always said, the integrity and the quality of the elections is determined by 4 factors: the quality of the voters' roll, the quality of the logistics, the quality of the electoral staff, as well as the political environment. Now, we've been taken to the electoral court because of the defects that were identified within the voters' roll. So the voters' roll plays a crucial role because it determines the eligibility of people who are supposed to be participating in the election. So if there is any thing wrong there, then anybody or political parties are entitled to raise those issues, firstly with the commission as objections, and if the commission, if they are not happy with the decision of the commission, then they can approach the electoral court. So we've been taken to the electoral court because of the defects in the voters' roll, but there are certain decisions also the commission that the commission had to take in relation to staff that were doing things that were not regular or inconsistent with the values of the organization. There is a staff member in KwaZulu-Natal a few years back who had to be imprisoned. And I think she was in prison for about 10 years for basically tampering with the results of an election. So there are many instruments, there are many complaints, there are many objections, and the commission always has a legal framework within which they can deal with those.
All right, so we're going to come back and chat a little bit more about these marks on our thumbs, the indelibility and the integrity of the vote this time around, and some of the checks and balances, if you could help us manage that.